All right, thank you. That concludes our special meeting, and I will now call our regular board. All right, Dr. Aguilar, do you have opening comments?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Members of the board, a couple reminders for your March calendar. I'm sorry, for your February calendar. We're having our first budget, special budget meeting set for Tuesday, February 21st at, is that at 5:30? At 5:30. Our meetings for the month of March, we have two meetings, the month of March. The first one is March 8th. That's our regular school board meeting. We will have our first recognition presentation meeting set for March 15th, and the location will be Lafayette High School. So I'd like you to be reminded of those meeting dates. Sorry, the budget meeting on the 21st is at 5 p.m. Congratulations to the third grade students of Ms. Angela Lee at Karen Crow Heights Elementary School for reaching their 500,000 point goal working with Think Through Math. Think Through Math is an online intervention that supports regular classroom math instructions. It is aligned with the Eureka curriculum and the state standards for mathematics. Think Through Math corporate headquarters congratulated Karen Crow Heights students with a $50 Pizza Hut reward. They are the second class in Louisiana to reach this milestone, and there is more good news. Karen Crow Heights is in the top 10 of the districts who are competing in the Think Through Math March Madness competition, the only school from Louisiana. They have the 9th highest average of passed lessons per active student in the central time zone in this competition. Good luck to these Karen Crow Heights students. I want to say a special thank you to the entire Lafayette Parish school system, employees, staff, and students for their contributions to the recent United Way of Acadiana Bucket Brigade. The Central Office, LaRosen, and Vermilion Conference offices collected a total of $1,353.62. The schools added to that $1,353 donation. The grand total of contributions from the Lafayette Parish School System to the United Way Bucket Brigade was $17,112.25. Thank you. Ove Como High School's speech and debate team participated in the Barkley Forum at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia on January 27 through 29. This tournament is one of the largest national showcase tournaments, drawing more than 150 schools from across the country. To be entered, each student had to be deemed qualified by the Board of Directors at the Barkley Forum based on their results at local tournaments and previous nationals. Each event started with close to 100 students. Results are as follows. Making the quarterfinals in duo interpretation, Paige Albright and Colby Camp. Making quarterfinals in prose poetry, Maggie Graham and Colby Camp. Making semifinals and placing 7th in this event, duo interpretation, Quest Broussard and Talon Ratliff. Making finals in dramatic interp, Talon Ratcliffe, and he placed 5th. Making finals in humorous interpretation, Jack Gosson, he placed 1st. Making finals in prose poetry, Quest Broussard placing 1st. Congratulations to the Como High Spartan Speech and Debate Squad. Also, congratulations to Carencro High School's Academy of Information Technology staff and students for being selected as a recipient for the J.P. Morgan Chase Foundation's Samsung Galaxy Tablet Giveaway. Based on the needs expressed in their application, the National Academy Foundation will be sending 114 tablets to Carencro High School for students to be able to use the technology to complete a project that will improve their college and career readiness skills. Congratulations to the directors of the Academy of Information Technology at Carencro High School. Congratulations to students from Northside, Carencro, and Lafayette High for participating in the Poetry Out Loud event sponsored by Acadiana Center for the Arts. Students recited poetry for the audience, and 3 were selected to advance to the state level of competition in Baton Rouge in March. Congratulations to Bailey Charles and Olivia Vossier from Lafayette High and Kelly Ernestine from Carencro High School. Members of the board, this month is African American History Month. I'd like to share just a few historical facts regarding this recognition. In 1926, it was Carver G. Woodson, a founder of the Association for the Study of African American History, who first came up with the idea of the celebration of Negro History Week. Woodson chose February for Negro History Week because it had the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. In 1976, as part of the United States bicentennial, the informal expansion of Negro History Week to Black History Month was officially recognized by the U.S. government. President Gerald Ford spoke in regards to this, urging Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. In 2003, the name African American History Month was coined, and today is interchangeable with Black History Month. Today, the primary emphasis is placed on encouraging the coordinated teaching of the history of American blacks in the nation's public schools, not just as a standalone month, but integrated into the curriculum throughout the year. I want to remind the board that the independent lecture series is going to take place on Monday, March 6th at the Cajun Dome Convention Center. The focus of this luncheon lecture series will be the state of the Lafayette Parish school system. There will be a daytime presentation from noon until 1:30 p.m. We will have an art gallery on display showing student work. We will also have live performances by music ensembles and dance teams. We will have a demonstration by our robotics team. There will also be, as part of the program, presentation of the colors by our ROTC teams, Pledge of Allegiance led by multilingual students, National Anthem performed by the LPSS choir to be announced, and then a video overview of high-performing students and programs, and finally I will address the community, providing my impression of the state of the Lafayette Parish school system. The event at noon is a ticketed event. There will be a duplicate session in the evening at the Cajun Dome. There will be no charge for parents, individuals in the community to come out and spend some time hearing about the good work that's happening in the Lafayette Parish school system. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard?
Truman Early Childhood Development School is celebrating the Dr. Seuss Read Across America. We would like to invite any adult or young adult and all the school board members to the annual Reading Across America celebration in honor of the children's author, Dr. Seuss. I'm told it's done in month of March because it's the author's birthday. Something new every day. It's Thursday, March 2nd, and breakfast starts at 8:45, and of course they'll have green eggs and ham with juice and milk. If anyone is interested, please contact Mrs. Boudreau or Mrs. Young at 521-7810. Your assistance is needed. We certainly appreciate your presence. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lashley?
I just want to take a second, being where the boardroom has been redecorated with art. A young man from El Leo Judice, Gabriel Nicholas, 4th grader, does a lot of artwork. He allowed me to borrow one of his pictures this evening to put in front of where I sit. I'm sure people would rather look at the artwork than me anyway, but I wanted to give a shout out to this young man. He's very passionate about his school and he's very passionate about his artwork, so I want to thank Gabriel in person here on TV. Hope he's watching. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the recognition of Candace Perrette, candidate for Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Ms. Perrette?
Good evening. First of all, I wanted to thank y'all very much for allowing me to come here tonight to introduce myself. My name is Candace Perrette, and I am a candidate for judge on the Third Circuit Court of Appeal. I am running for the seat recently vacated by Judge Jimmy Genovez, and that election is on March 25th of this year. Not a lot of people realize there's even realize that there's an election coming up. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I live and practice here in Lafayette. I live here with my husband and 3 sons. I've been practicing law for 20 years. I am originally from Marksville. I'm a country girl. I know most people hear of Marksville and they think about the casino, but we have other things in Marksville other than the casino. And I grew up there pre-casino days. So I grew up in Marksville. That is where I started my practice 20 years ago. I was the youngest city prosecutor ever appointed. I'm proud to say unanimously by the mayor and the city council. Probably the only thing they've ever agreed on, but was unanimous. I had a small country practice, so I have handled virtually every type of case that would come before the Third Circuit. I've litigated hundreds of cases, and I also have appellate experience. I worked on the appellate court in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal for several years, and I worked for the chief judge as his senior law clerk. I've been asked on the campaign trail why I am running for office, and I think it's important. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office, and I never thought I would run for office, but I think it's really important that good people step up to the plate and run for these important seats. We need fair and impartial people on the bench, people who are not going to care about special interest groups standing before them. And we need to bring some balance to the court. I'm not a politician, but I am a wife and a mother and a lawyer and a member of the community, and I care about our community. And public service is something that's very important to our family. We're very engaged in the community in our church and through our family's cancer center, as well as other nonprofit organizations in the community. I am very proud to say that I graduated from public school, valedictorian of my class, and my mother was a high school English teacher in the public school system for 35 years. They drug her out of there kicking and screaming. She really loved what she did, and I'm very proud that she taught for as long as she did. My stepmother is also a kindergarten teacher, and I don't think she's ever going to leave. But anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about why I'm running, and tell you a little bit about my qualifications. I've also represented the towns of Arnaville, Leonville, Krotz Springs, and Port Barre. So I don't think you'll find a candidate with a more diverse legal background than myself. But again, thank you for letting me come here tonight to introduce myself, and thank you all for what you do. I think it's very important. I recognize the value of education and good schools, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perrette. All right, and as we say at our meetings, Ms. Perrette, if you have other meetings to attend to, you can feel free to leave at any time. So I'm going to begin the portion of our consent agenda. What I will do is I will read each of the agenda items. If any of the board members want to pull them for a discussion, they'll do so. Those matters that are not pulled, we will vote on in globo. So 2.1, Resolution 02-17-1902, call for sales tax election.
Pull that, please.
2.2, Resolution 01-17-1896, projects listing for call for election for sales tax.
And that one.
2.3, the purchase of property for a new elementary school in Broussard. 2.4, board approval for personnel staffing at Southside High School. 2.5, board approval for personnel staffing at Edward J. Sam Accelerated School of Lafayette. 2.6, approved bid award, child nutrition freezer forklift bid number 27-17. 2.7, general fund budget revision for emerging schools.
Pull that one.
2.8, summary of grant funding and activity January 2017. 2.9, sales tax collection reports for December 2016 and January 2017. 2.10, budget to actual reports January 2017. 2.11, gymnasium air conditioning cost estimates update. 2.12, approval of bid for Scott Middle School underground HVAC piping replacement. 2.13, approval of quotes for Westside Elementary School flooring abatement. 2.14, approval of bids for Milton Elementary middle additions and renovations.
Pull that one, please.
2.15, approval of bids for child nutrition services freezer building. 2.16, approval of requests for proposals for environmental consulting services. 2.17, approval of statement of qualifications for construction manager at risk services on the Como High Performing Arts Building. 2.18, 2017 JCFA Type 1 Charter School application.
Pull that one.
2.19, resolution for National Career and Technical Education Month. 2.20, 2017-18 and 2018-19 district and administrative calendars. 2.21, Edward J. Sam Accelerated School of Lafayette School Secretary 2 job description. 2.22, Resolution 02-17-1900 for immigration attorney. 2.23, Resolution 02-17-1901 for immigration attorney. 2.24, Human Resources 2017-18 staffing allocation booklet. 2.25, accountability data and policy specialist job description. That was you, Timmy? 2.26, credentialing, I'm sorry, I can't say that word, audit coordinator job description. Schools of choice, I'm sorry, 227, schools of choice enrollment and recruitment manager job description. Two point 28, modified policy JBCC student assignment. 2.29, report on group health plan.
Pull that one, please.
Okay, 2.30, resolution for custodian of 403B plan.
Could you please pull 2.24? Staffing allocation.
Okay. All right. And 2.31, approval of minutes.
Madam President, I move that we approve all action items with the exception of those pulled.
A second.
Okay. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, now is the time. If any of you are here to discuss any of those matters that we did not indicate were being pulled, now is your opportunity to do so. All right, members of the board, discussion of any of those items not pulled. All right, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote when you're ready.
Looking good. Don't worry. Don't worry, though.
All right, can everyone please refresh their screens? I didn't hear it, okay. All right, the first item pulled is 2.1, Resolution 02-17-1902, the call for sales tax election.
Madam President, I move that the board approve Resolution 02-17-1902, calling a special election to be held in Consolidated School District Number 1 of the Parish of Lafayette, State of Louisiana, to authorize the collection of a sales tax.
Second.
All right, any member of the public have any comments or concerns to express regarding the call for a tax proposal? All right, members of the board? Okay, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Ms. Morris?
Yes.
So the recommended,
The resolution is.
Ms. Morris, the resolution that's attached to the agenda item is worded correctly. The recommended action is incorrect on your screen. It's not to be held in the Consolidated School District Number 1. It's to be held in Lafayette Parish. Just want to point that out.
Madam President, I'll amend my motion that the board approve Resolution 02-17-1902, calling a special election to be held in the parish of Lafayette, state of Louisiana, to authorize the collection of a sales tax.
Okay, so we have a corrected motion. Okay, any discussion? Right, Madam Secretary, if you can make that change, we'll re-vote on that. Just tell your voice vote.
9-4, none against.
All right, we apologize for the technical difficulties. All right, that motion passed. The next agenda item is 2.2, Resolution 01-17-1896, the projects listing for the call for election for sales tax.
Madam President, I move that the board approves Resolution 01-17-1896, which provides the project listing under the purpose stated in call for election for a sales tax.
Second.
All right, if any members of the public have any comments about the proposed project list and the resolution, that if the sales tax passes, this will be the dedicated project list. All right, members of the board, Dr. Shassel?
I want to know if there was any resolution to what we had discussed about for District 4.
There's no specific resolution to that conversation. Billy Guidry sent you a spreadsheet this afternoon showing work that's been done in District 4.
Okay.
Dr. Chasson, you have additional questions?
Yes, ma'am. Just give me a second.
All right, while you're thinking, if you don't mind, Dr. Aguilar, I know that you've explained this before, but can you kind of give an overview of the process for how these projects got on this project list?
Yes, ma'am. Happy to do so. Members of the board, thank you for just voting for that half-cent sales tax with a 10-year term, excluding food and drugs. The revenue from that half-cent sales tax will generate approximately $194 million. We have provided the board with a project listing that pretty much uses the full amount, $194 million. The schools that made that list were the schools that have the largest number of temporary buildings. So we have schools in Lafayette Parish, many that have more than 20 temporary classrooms, some as many as 35 temporary classrooms. The project listing simply lists the schools based on the number of temporary buildings. It's not necessarily a priority list recommended to the board at this point, but the idea behind this tax that we absolutely hope the citizens of Lafayette will consider is that we are making plans to eliminate roughly 248 temporary buildings, temporary classrooms on 12 campuses. That 248 temporary classrooms represents 60% of our inventory of temporary classrooms in the district. 10 of the 12 schools listed in that project listing will get wings. The wings will completely replace the number of temporary buildings on that campus. The money that we are budgeting for each of those wing replacement projects will also provide for making necessary upgrades to the core service areas on those campuses, the cafeteria, the administrative wings, the library, the number of bathrooms, things like that. We want to bring the core service areas up to the capacity today of the schools that have been serviced for decades with temporary buildings. We have children who start having lunch served to them at 10:30 in the morning, and lunch runs throughout the district to as late as 1:30 in the afternoon. We have children who get soaked between class exchanges. We have buildings that are difficult to cool and heat effectively. We have buildings that make it difficult for children to hear and receive instruction during bad weather, inclement weather. Plus, we have children that have to be evacuated to the main buildings whenever there's a threat of severe weather. So what we're asking the voters to do is to consider helping us reduce the inventory of temporary buildings in this district. We believe that the district will be able to be shovel-ready very quickly, and we will be able to break ground and start making improvements on some of these campuses. And so that, in a nutshell, is what we're asking the voters to consider on April 29.
Thank you, Dr. Aguilar. And my appreciation is that the projects that are listed here were drawn partially from the master's facility plan that we obtained several years ago, and that they are scattered throughout the entire parish. They're not concentrated in one particular geographical location.
Yes, ma'am. I failed to mention that repeatedly these are the projects that have the highest priority.
Thank you. Dr. Chasson, were you ready to continue? Okay.
As far as the security packages that we spoke of for the individual schools, I know that's something that's going to be coming, but I thought was going to be in the project listings.
Dr. Chasson, the security packages were in the larger proposition that the board earlier considered was about $600 million. Each school was set to receive a security package improvement. As we tried to align the amount of money collected in the 10-year period, we're working with a third of the money that former proposition would have provided. Embedded in this proposition, members of the board, will be approximately $3 million annually that will be available for general maintenance. My recommendation to the board would be that we use that $3 million annually to do such things such as security packages, security improvements, and any other projects that we think are necessary. That is where I believe the security packages opportunity will come from.
Okay. How much is it per security package? You guys happen to remember, anybody?
Dr. Chasson, we were just it depends on the actual site. It's probably going to be anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000 per school.
Okay.
Madam President.
Okay. Mr. Broussard.
Dr. Aguilar cleared that up. I just wanted to say with that, hopefully the pass of that tax, it would free up some other monies to do some of the things at some of the other schools. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Aguilar, these schools that's listed on this list, we're obligated to do that. That's etched in stone pretty much. But we're also going to do some work at other schools with the monies that would otherwise be used for these facilities.
Yes, sir, you're correct.
All right, Mr. Knazik.
And although it may appear it's not directly related to this resolution because our previous resolution had mention of security, I think it's relevant to talk about that. But Dr. Chasson, I share with you that concern. In our district, we have a dire need to improve our facilities from a physical security standpoint. And unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. Not to mention, we have a need to pay for police officers now in our school system that requires money. So I do think that is something that the board will have to address in the future as a revenue stream to address our security needs that we have today that we didn't have 2 or 3 decades ago.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Dr. Aguilar, along the lines of what Dr. Chasson and Mr. Broussard were speaking of, I don't want to beat a dead horse. However, I think it's important just to make sure we clarify to the public that there are monies being spent now to do various patchwork around the district, which in my opinion is a waste of our money. However, it's a necessary waste because we have to patch the holes, right? We all remember the blue tarp at Como High School. Do you have an idea of how much we're talking about based on the project listing here, based on the new construction? Do we have an idea of a dollar amount of what we're talking about freeing up? If you've already answered that, I apologize, but do you have that?
Mr. Hidalgo, no, I don't think we've run that kind of calculation, but it's reasonable to assume that if we make the necessary improvements to 12 campuses, that we will reduce our obligation for general maintenance. And so, it's reasonable to assume there's at least another $1 million that might be available annually. When you add that to the $3 million, it's not a small amount of money to be doing $4 million potential dollars worth of improvements annually to our schools. So it's something that we can look at and will once we build out those improvements to those campuses.
Thank you.
Mr. Angel.
Just a quick addition, Mr. Dalgo and fellow board members and the public. Should we be successful in this endeavor, we will no longer have lease payments on all of these temporary buildings. So that right there would be money that would become available right away.
All right. Any additional comments from the board? Mr. Santani.
Well, I think I mentioned this at a prior meeting that since 2011, we've spent as a school system close to $11 million on leasing and moving portable buildings around the district. And so that certainly, to your point, Mr. Angel, will not be a cost that we'll incur anymore. I think over the last couple of months as we've gone through this, I'd like to thank everyone involved, certainly the superintendent and his staff, my fellow board members for putting in so much time and effort and thought into this process, and all of the community members who have attended these meetings that have dragged on and not been the most exciting topic ever, but it's certainly a necessary thing. I really think this presents an opportunity for Lafayette Parish to take a step forward as far as our school system facilities, and I appreciate everybody who's supported this.
All right, any additional questions or comments? And Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
All right, the next agenda item is 2.7, General Fund Budget Revision for Emerging Schools.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the general fund budget revision in the amount of $45,000 for emerging schools with an offsetting budget revision to the property tax revenue.
I'll second.
All right. Any member of the public have any questions or comments about this agenda item? All right, members of the board? All right, if no questions or comments, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, one against.
All right, next agenda item is 2.11, Gymnasium Air Conditioning Cost Estimates Update. All right.
Second.
And the second from Mr. Santani. All right. Any questions or comments from members of the public on this agenda item? All right, members of the board, Mr. Broussard? Mr. Broussard, is your microphone working?
Oh, I'm sorry. My concern is that when we ask for quotes and we go back for quotes again, what was left out? What was left out, and how will we tackle that when we got 14% on the second quote than the first one? What was left out? What wasn't necessary to put in that we're not going to use now? Why did the quote come in so much different? What, $2 million different?
Good evening, members of the board. Kyle Bordelon, Director of Planning and Facilities. What you have before you are estimates from the three engineering firms that prepared these for us to see how close we were on the budgets for the entire 18 gyms. These are not quotes from contractors. Those quotes will have to be developed and bids will have to be developed later. However, in going into it, what you see in the first column, that was the engineer's first estimates of what the projects would cost.
However, when they came in at a grand total of approximately $13.5 million for all 18, we sat back down with them and said, look, we have $12.5 million. What can we do to reduce the cost of the projects? And as noted on the bottom of that sheet, that summary sheet, one of the big things that all three engineers agreed to was to reduce the capacity of the units down to about 90% of the maximum load. So what that means is they're reducing the amount of tons of air conditioning for the gymnasiums. How often we will need maximum capacity, how often that gym will be filled to every seat being full for a very long period of time, may not be very often, especially in the hottest months of the year. So consciously, we are reducing the load by 10% in the very good hopes that we're not going to need that much air conditioning for a long, maybe I'd say a long period of time, 6 or 8 hours at a time, where you have every seat in that gymnasium full of people, because all those people generate a lot of heat. The majority of the time, while school is in session, you're going to have 60 to 90, maybe as much as 100 kids in a PE class, a far cry from the maximum number of seats filled in that gymnasium. So all the engineers feel comfortable that this is a good, acceptable way to get all of these projects within the budgeted funds.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Mr. Knezik?
Mr. Bordelon, are these going to be, have you already selected the design firms?
We have not, but we are suggesting that we utilize the 3 design firms that have already worked on these estimates because of their familiarity with the projects, and just trying to get this thing up and running as quick as we
and
can.
with regard to the design fee, I understand that it's a sliding scale. So, and I believe that the larger the revenue associated with the project, the lower the fee. Is that
the lower the percentage is?
Right.
Yes.
So are we planning to lump these together so that we can reduce that average design fee?
Yes, sir. Our recommendation is to have all 3 engineers perform 6 projects, 6 gymnasiums apiece.
Okay. Do you know about how much that changes the design fee? Okay.
No, sir, not exactly. But it's averaging about 10. I used the low, I figured it out, the low percentage versus the high percentage of design fees, but the average is 10.2%.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Centani?
Am I understanding you correctly, Mr. Knezik, when you say it's a sliding scale, so if one design firm did the entire $12.5 million, maybe they would charge us, I'm just going to use the number, not that this is the real world, they would charge us 2%, but if we divided it up by 3, perhaps each of them might charge us 6%?
In theory, yes. I don't know, I personally do not know that scale.
I don't either, I just wanted to make sure I understood how that worked.
Right.
Okay.
They get paid more for smaller jobs, which it's economy of scale, so.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Nine for, none against.
All right, we're about halfway through the agenda items that we pulled. Before I continue, I want to just acknowledge Boy Scout Troop Pack number 156 from Paul Bro and LJ Alama. They came here tonight to observe government in action, so welcome. All right. The next agenda item is 2.14, approval of bids for Milton Elementary Middle additions and renovations. Mr. Angel, you pulled that one.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Madam President, I would like to make a motion that we approve the base bid of the request for proposals from environmental consulting for Milton.
Second.
What? Yes.
Mr. Angel, let's just make sure that we're looking at the right language. Mr. Bordelon is.
The environmental consultant? Environmental consultant is agenda item 2.16. Okay, the bids for Milton additions and renovations?
Yeah.
Okay.
The base bid.
Base bid only?
Base bid only.
Base bid, yes. I know we have three alternatives. I think maybe I would respectfully request that we approve the base bid, and maybe we can spread the money around the monies for the other three proposals, and perhaps later come up with the money. But right now we could kind of spread it among some of our other schools.
Can I request that the motion be specific with the dollar amount so we're perfectly clear as to what that is, please?
What, 11.844 million dollars.
All right, Madam Secretary, you have that. So the motion is to approve agenda item 2.114 at the low base bid of 11.884 million. Made by Mr. Angel. Was there a second? Mr. Lachalet, your second.
So, Ms. Morris,
Yes.
just give us a moment. That recommended language for the agenda will change the low bidder.
Okay.
I thought every time we bid, everything being equal, we went to the low bidder.
Okay, so our
Mr.
staff
Bo-
here says it's no problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Madam Secretary, do you mind reading the motion or posting it so we can make sure? I know there's been a lot of discussion, just getting the language right.
That the board authorize staff to award the low base bid to Keelan Construction LLC for $11,844,000. Nope. I'm sorry. Say that again?
Right, if you go just with
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone in the public who has any comments on this particular agenda item, I invite you to come up and make those now.
Good night.
Good evening, Board. My name is Keith DeRusso. I'm the president of Keyland Construction. We bid on the Milton project. We were worked very hard and very proud to support you on this project. This project consisted of a base bid and 3 alternate bids, 3 alternate portions also that were included. We were the lowest bid when considered the base bid plus the alternates together. We were the low bidder on the project. The project would be fragmented in areas and would be incomplete without the alternates. The original budget that was on the entire school was, I believe, Mark, 15.1 million. Our total base bid plus alternates, I believe, is 12,182,000, which is substantially less than what was estimated to build this project. So we're asking for consideration to award the project to Keelan Construction with the base bids plus the alternates. That would place us as the total low bidder on the project.
Yes.
I would just like to hear a discussion of what does, like I can read right here what alternate 1, 2, and 3 are. Perhaps this is a question for the architect on, obviously we have some opinion on staff that we should do all three alternates. We have some opinion of people on this board that think we should just do the base. So so we can try to judge the value of each particular piece of the project. What do the three alternates give us, and what do we miss out on?
Right. I'm Mark Stilper. I'm the president of the MBSP group. Alternate number one is right now we're creating that Q road. I don't know if anybody's been watching that, but we're in the middle of creating that Q road that will be the parent drop-off for all the students, the car drop-off. What we're doing with that alternate number one is connecting a canopy from that car drop-off back to the school proper. Otherwise, they're doing a zigzag motion to get to that car drop-off. It is both paving and a covered canopy that makes a nice smooth transition back to the school that's there now. Alternate two sets up for a second kitchen line. The equipment in that second kitchen line is alternate two, is part of alternate two. The other half of that is going back into the existing school, retrofitting the lock sets in there to where they're accessible for students with accessibility issues. Alternate three, Milton is a school that has a high percentage of students that bring their lunches that sit outside scattered. We're creating a nice outdoor area for those students in that alternate three, as well as another little area that would be like an outdoor classroom area. So all of these, I think, are fitting for the project, make it a full project, and we would certainly recommend all of them.
Mr. Knezik.
Mr. Bordelon, can you discuss how you came about the selection of the low bidder with the alternates and any guiding principles? I believe I understand, as I'm reading it, there's a revised statute 382212.1, section B3 that states, the determination of the low bidder shall be on the basis of the sum of the base bid and any alternates accepted. However, the public entity may accept alternates in any order which does not affect determination of the low bidder. So it seems that we have the flexibility to accept or deny alternates, but I think the issue becomes if we were to accept, it would be disingenuous if we awarded right now, but then awarded a contract mod to whoever we award to later to include these alternates, if our intent all along was to do the construction. So I would say if we go down this route, then the option to include the alternates in the contract would not be there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe it is. I think if we tried to add them in later, I think we could put the board in peril if we tried to do that. So because, as Mr. Stilper stated, because we had about $15.1 million in the construction budget and the bids came in, when you grand total the base bid plus the alternates at 12.1, we just felt it was a good thing to try and get all this work included in the project.
So then my follow-up question is, are these wants or needs as far as the construction, and why were they included as alternates in the first place?
We were skeptical of whether the construction costs would come in too high. So we used them as a mechanism to try to keep the addition, the classroom addition in the base bid within the budget, and if we needed to reduce the amount of work, we could do it with the alternates, not including the alternates if there was a budget issue. Fortunately for us, all of the work that was in the bid documents came in well under the budget.
So Dr. Aguilar or Mr. Bordelon, back to Mr. Knezik's question, are these needs or wants?
Well, personally, I believe it's a combination of both. The paving and walkway canopy from the car drop-off would allow a very smooth transition of the students to get from the car drop-off into the building without the zigzag of following the existing covered walkways. The Currently, the kitchen has one serving line. They have 1,000 students. We're hopeful that with the expansion of the cafeteria, more students will eat. If more students do eat, a second serving line would definitely get them in and out faster. And because of the high number of students that do bring their lunch to school and who do go outside, we were hoping that this paved area with the fencing would be a great location for these kids who choose to go outside to eat, would be a good place for them to go.
Mr. Angel?
Yeah, Madam President, I want to point out that it's almost a diametric opposition here. We want one of the alternates is to add a second line in the cafeteria so more people can eat in the cafeteria, and then the third alternate is to have a nice paved area outside for people not to eat in the cafeteria. So, I mean, it seems like we're diametrically opposing ourselves. I wouldn't be totally opposed to the walkway and maybe the second line for the cafeteria, but there are a lot greater needs in our system than a nice paved area for people who choose not to eat in the cafeteria outside.
Madam President.
Mr. Hidalgo?
Thank you. I think just on the basis that the bid came in as low as it did, just that basis alone, I think is, for me, is certainly warrants, supporting the entire project. Not to mention that taking the three alternates out is going to leave $300,000, which we all know. I'm sure it's already spent in somebody else's mind here tonight. However, we're talking about a school that, and if you've ever been there and you've seen the footprint of it, has 1,000 students. And so, like many schools in the district, they start eating lunch at 10-something and they don't finish till well after noon. So definitely the second serving line is, in my opinion, a must-have. As far as the covered canopy area, there are many schools that don't have the covered canopy areas, and we all hear about it when it rains. We're going to be building out this project. It's something we voted on, we agreed to do, and I think that this is something while they're there that they need to do. I mean, again, it goes back to what we fought at with our last couple of agenda items. We're so far behind. We're decades behind on our facilities. Why are we going to halfway something? The third line item, and listen, I don't want to downplay it. It would be a lot in my checking account, but the third line item is $28,000. We're going to start nickel and diming this project. That's already $3 million under budget, or about. And we're going to change the low bidder. And that's something that several board members sitting here tonight have rightfully so brought up in the past about our processes that we use. This is using the same process of making changes to, because of who is bidding. I would rather it just be a blank line so we don't know who these contractors are when they come up. When we change that bidder, I think it opens us up for major issues, and I think that, again, because of the bottom line cost, because of how low it came in, as it relates to what we budgeted for, and because of the differences in these three alternates, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Angel, but I can't support not going with the whole project based on everything I just mentioned.
Thank you, and I'd like to say that I agree with Mr. Hidalgo. It's more cost-effective to do everything together. We are trying to improve all of our schools, so we should not cut back on one of those that we've already budgeted to take care of. With the school line, Mr. Angel, I can tell you that what children will do is they look at the menu, and if they don't like what's on the menu today, they bring their lunch. Tomorrow, they're going to go through the lunch line. So I don't know if it's an accurate statement to say it's one or the other. They switch up on a daily basis, many of them. So I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Hidalgo.
Madam President, if I could, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommended action, substitute motion that we approve the recommended action of staff, that the board authorize staff to award the low base bid and alternates 1, 2, and 3 to Keelan Construction, LLC for $12,182,000 for the Milton Elementary Middle Additions and Renovations Project in accordance with Louisiana Public Bid Law.
Second.
All right, we have a substitute motion by Mr. Hidalgo and a second by Mr. Knezik. Okay. Any comments from the public on the substitute motion? All right, Mr. Santani.
I'm going to ask Mr. Knezik another question since he's our government bidding expert here. Might understand that we would be on more solid footing if we chose the base or the base plus all three. This is not a menu that we are able to choose from, correct?
No, the way I read that statute is it is a menu, but it has to be in order. I mean, I can read it again. Oh.
Yeah, the law is obviously that it's going to go to the low bidder. Now, you're not required to accept alternates. You have them as an alternate in order to give you discretion on whether to accept them or not. The one requirement is that you must accept your alternates in order if it will change the low bidder. In this case, it will. So you can, for example, you could accept the base bid in alternate 1. You could accept base bid in alternate 2. But you cannot accept base bid in alternate 3. In order to get to alternate number 3, you would have to accept 1 and 2.
Right. So if we accept base bid 1, then it goes to, I can't find the name of the company, but not Keelan, Descant. And if we accept option alternate 1, it still goes to Descant. If we accept option alternate 2, it still goes to Descant. But when we accept alternate 3, it goes to Keeland. And that's the issue, really. But I mean, Mr. Bordenlaw used the words board in peril. I'm sure that we would probably never be able to install whatever alternate 3 is if we went this route, or the initial motion route.
And probably not for $10,000 to $20,000, which is what the bids are.
I'll tell you that the parents at Myrtle Place bought nice outdoor tables and put them outside themselves. You know, they got old playground equipment and plastic tables.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Dr. Chasson?
I had a quick question for Mr. Bordelon. Mr. Bordelon, so we decided to go with all 3 alternates based upon the fact that it was underneath 15 million. So let's say the base bid took us to 15 million and any alternates would have taken us over. We would have not worried about the alternates.
That is correct.
That would have been the recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I understand what Mr. Angel is saying, and I'm inclined to agree with him. There are other needs besides these, and if it takes us to another $200,000, and that's $200,000 that can be spent elsewhere other than an either-or option for folks that there are other cafeterias that are bursting at the seams as well. I prefer to take that money and spend it on those cafeterias.
Mr. Angel?
Just to, in line with what Dr. Chasson is saying, I understand that the work of the alternates, that if they were done under this job, it would be less expensive than doing it later on. But that's not my argument. My argument is kind of what Dr. Chasson was saying. I'm not talking about eventually doing this. I'm talking about putting that money elsewhere in our system where it's much, much greater needs. So I'm not talking about doing it cheaper. I know you could do it cheaper under the one bid scenario, but I'd like to see that money spent where other kids get rained on when they're waiting for the bus and stuff. I mean, or other things, parking lots that are half mud and half sandstone. I mean, there are a whole lot of other things, places where we could put the money, is what I'm saying.
Okay, any other questions or comments about Dr. Chasson?
My apologies. I know I made mention of $200,000, but I'm just looking at bold numbers. The actual difference is $346,000.
I will allow a very short comment from you. Sir, I'll allow a very short comment. This is a little bit out of order.
The three alternates add,
It's 100, 125. It's 235,000 for the three alternates. And then on alternate number 3, just real quickly, it's a very nice eating area with the concrete paving and the fencing, and that third alternate for Keelan Construction is only $10,000. Thank you again for your consideration.
Mr. Santani.
I would point out that while Dr. Chasson was not correct, he was pretty close. The difference is not what the alternates cost under your scenario or the alternates cost under the Descan scenario. The difference is the base plus all three alternates with you as the low bidder and the base with Descan as the low bidder, which is the difference is $338,000, because as we've discussed, we're much better off doing all three or just the base.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote on the substitute motion. Yes, on the substitute motion.
Voted. Yes.
I think there's a change
Six-
vote.
6-4, 3 against.
What do you have for Dr. Chasson?
I have a yes.
Okay. Can you
A
please
no.
change his vote to a no?
Okay. Five, 4 against.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Next item is 2.18, 2017 JCFA Type 1 Charter School application. 2.18.
I make a motion that we go with the recommendation that the board deny the JCFA Type 1 charter application based upon the recommendation of the third-party reviewer.
Second by Mr. Broussard. All right, we have any questions or comments from members of the public on this agenda item? All right, members of the board? Mr. Hidalgo?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Very brief. With all the leeway and with all the opportunity we left on this vote that we made several weeks ago, all the opportunity we left out on the floor, I'm very disappointed in the outcome. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? And Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. All
8-4, 1 abstain.
All right, the next agenda item is 2.24, the 17-18 staffing allocation booklet was pulled by Mr. Angel. 2.24.
Yes, ma'am. For discussion purposes, I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that we adopt the staff allocation summary changes with this addition. Number 9, that the central office secretarial staffing allocations be removed from the allocation guidelines and will be determined by the needs of the various departments. I'd like to change that verbiage to closely resemble that of number 3. ESL pupil-teacher ratios will vary based on the needs of the school and will be determined by the superintendent.
Mr. Angel, if and that's what I was going to suggest, if we add the verbiage with approval of the superintendent, and you get the request from staff, but the superintendent ultimately makes the decision based on our resources, financial, and the needs of the departments.
That's exactly what I was looking for.
All right, can I get a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Lashley. Okay, Mr. Santani.
I have a very smart aleck comment. Can we do that for the whole staffing booklet?
In a lot of respects, that is the case. The superintendent can always intervene, and occasionally he's going to bring it to the board for approval, and at the very least to keep you in the circle. But he really does have a lot of latitude. This isn't policy. These are guidelines to assist human resources, and so that the school administrators kind of know where they stand as they go into staffing and trying to fill vacancies at their schools.
May I make a very brief hobby horse statement?
Yes.
All right. I'll say it again, that this staffing allocation, I get this. This is not how many kids are going to be in a classroom. And we went through this last year when we demonstrated that while this does say 24 students to 1 teacher in grades K to 3, I challenge you to find more than 10 K to 3 classrooms that have more than 24 kids in it. And the vast majority of them, they have 18, 19, 20, 17. Because of the way this is actually implemented, it's a budgetary technique, and it's a dumb one, but it's nonetheless our budgetary technique. And it would be much, much better if we just decided, you know what, here's how much money we're going to spend on teachers' salaries this year, and this is how much money we're going to spend on custodian salaries this year. And as I go down the list, physical education, and vocal teachers, and pre-K classrooms, and librarians, and special educators, and then ask the superintendent to say, please hire enough to teach the kids, we would be much better off, and certainly not in a situation where every budget year we have appeals and we lay these teachers off, and then we hire 40 of them back, and all these financial gymnastics that we go through. Thank you for entertaining me, Ms. Morse.
Thank you. Now I'll get back to the regular agenda and ask if any members of the public have any questions or comments on this agenda item. All right. Now, any further questions or comments from members of the board? All right. Mr. Angel, can you review how the motion is worded to make sure, because there was a lot of discussion there on the motion? Can you see what Melva has typed and make sure it's what you intend?
Yes.
All right, so if there's no further discussion on this item, then I'll call for the vote.
Not going to Ruth Chris.
9-4, none against.
All right, our next agenda item is 2.25, Accountability Data and Policy Specialist Job Description. Dr. Chasson, you pulled that one. Or would you like one of your fellow board members to do so?
I'll make one.
Okay, Mr. Angel.
Yes, ma'am. Based on the recommendation of the do we have both of them in global, or you have two separate resolutions?
Two separate resolutions, so this is not the resolution, this is 2.25, a job description. Accountability, data, and policy specialist job description.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the
I'll second.
presented job description.
So a motion by Mr. Angel, second by Mr. Knezik. All right, any comments or questions from the public? All right, Dr. Shasta?
Yes, ma'am. I was just curious to know that if this particular job description is going to incur new hires. Is this a new job?
Suzanne Thibodeau, Assistant Director of Human Resources. No, sir, Dr. Chasson, it will not. Someone was in the position and was awarded another position, applied and got another position. And so they would like to replace that person, but before we do, we wanted to update the job description. And as you'll see there, it just, the duties are better reflected in the new job description.
Okay. So the actual job title is?
The job title will be
Accountability, Data, and Policy Specialist?
Right, and we do have data liaisons in the school, so that made it confusing, but the position at the central office needed to look a little bit different.
Okay. So is there anyone that's currently in this position?
It's vacant because someone was in it and accepted another position.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Hidalgo? No. Okay, any other questions or comments? And Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Yes.
8-4, none against.
All right, our next agenda item is 2.27, Schools of Choice Enrollment and Recruitment Manager Job Description. That was also pulled by you, Dr. Chassaw, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Angel. All right, any comments or questions from members of the public? All right, Dr. Chassaw?
Is there someone currently in this position?
Yes, sir, there is someone in this position.
Okay. So we're revising the job description to better reflect that person's actual responsibilities.
Yes, sir.
But as well, we're changing the name of the actual job title.
Yes, sir. That is correct. The reason why Ms. Samick had suggested this because...
Ms. Thibodeau, that was the actual question that I needed answered. So is this something that staff would like to pull? Because based upon changing a job description, adding or subtracting, and then changing the actual job title, it's in my opinion, and maybe I may be wrong, but, and if I am, someone please correct me. If you're changing job roles and job functions and making a brand new job description, job title, you're going to have to interview for that position.
Dr. Chasson, you're correct, and it's our intention to advertise for that position.
Okay, any further questions or comments on this agenda item? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. That's just an information report.
Eight for, none against.
All right, and the last and final agenda item is an information item, 2.29, report on the group health plan. Ms. Bernard? So this is simply an information item, so we don't need a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Mona Bernard, Director of Risk Management. Thank you. We've invited Lynn Fontaine with HUB, our consultant on the health plan, to come and deliver to us a year-end report for 2016.
Okay, Mr. Fontaine? Mr. Fontaine, whenever you're ready, and short and sweet would be great.
All righty. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. If you all have your handouts and you go to the first page, you'll see total claims figure here for the 2016 plan year at $46,129,798. Total plan costs a little further down at $47,273,442. Your total funding into the plan at $48,490,557 leaves us with a surplus of $1,217,000. So in summary here, we're still operating in a surplus position, although we have had an increase in our total claims of about 8.5%. Our fixed costs are remaining stable. Our planned funding has increased about 10.8%. So we're still operating in a surplus position here and have additional sufficient monies to operate the plan. On the second page, everything is broken out in a per employee per month basis. I can report to you that your total claims are up about 8.5%. Your total plan cost about 7.7%. Your total funding is up about 1.8%. If we look onto page 3, enrollment has not changed much, but what I can report to you is your retiree enrollment is up. Your active enrollment is actually down just a bit. You're bringing really no total change to the group whatsoever, but it's also to be noted that your single coverage is actually decreasing a little bit while your dependent coverage is going up. So one thing we always look at is our membership, the number of bodies that we're covering in the group, outpacing the growth of the group from our employee retiree participation. Not really happening much at all, but as we all know, there's been layoffs in private industry, especially within the oil field industry around our area. So we want to make certain that our membership is not increasing on us in a rapid pace. That is not happening, but we put keeping a close eye on it. That's further depicted on page 4 because our membership has actually increased less than 1%. On page 5, I'm happy to report to you that we're not expending more on our spousal or our child membership than we are on our own employees. Several school districts that we represent, because of rapid growth in membership as other private sector firms increase their rates or reduce their benefits, your plan continues to look more and more attractive. And that increases the membership and increases the cost of the plan. Not really happening here at present, but we're keeping a close eye on that. On page 6, you'll see your medical claims graphed out. This year, our medical claims increased 5.7%. That's actually less than healthcare trend, but it was more a function of high-cost claimants, increased inpatient and outpatient hospital utilization, and a decrease in our out-of-pocket maximum benefit structure. Prescription drugs, our increase year over year here is 13.9%. This increase is due to an increase in overall utilization of medications, but more so increase in costs from drug manufacturers and greater utilization of high-cost medications. Some of the things we've recently done in going out and renegotiating our pharmacy contract will bring this number down, but as you know, from January through September, we were under the Blue Cross PBM contract or pharmacy contract. 13.9% is a little over industry trends, but what we're battling right now is the increased utilization of high-cost medications. Many industry experts say that the specialty medications out there, that many of them didn't even exist several years ago, will be as much as 50% of our total prescription drug spend by the end of 2018. Prescription drugs could be as much as 50% of our total claim spend by 2020. So this is something that we're really watching here, and we will look at every industry measure to mitigate this increased cost. From a total claims perspective, when we couple the medical and prescription drugs, the increase is 8.5%, right in line with industry standards there. Total plan costs 7.7. Your average increase in plan costs since 2012, 3.6%. And that's outstanding. That's well under industry standards. As far as claims by benefit type, on page 10, increases on inpatient, right at healthcare trends, 6.1%. Outpatient, because of some increased utilization of chemotherapy and other measures, about 17.7. Our professional component, which are doctors and diagnostic work and the like, actually decreased 1.3%. From our provider network savings, our discounts are actually up this year 68.7%. That is more of a function of the claims mix than anything else, but very, very high PPO, our preferred provider organization savings discounts. Network utilization, in addition to your high PPO savings percentage, 98.2% of all claims are in network, which is an extremely high percentage, meaning that your employees have ample choice of doctors and hospitals in your network. Prescription utilization by number of scripts, 85% generic utilization. That's outstanding, especially for a school district, and with a higher average age and higher demographic. 85% compares favorably to many other school districts who are probably 5 to 6% under that figure.
Madam President, I'd like to ask, if 85% is outstanding, but the increase that we saw earlier is so huge because of the use of non-generic drugs, where were we at before?
What's happening in the prescription drugs, to address that question, the utilization of these specialty medications whereby there aren't generic equivalents for things like Emerald and Humira to treat rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, things like this. The cost of those medications, many generics are actually less than your copay.
Are those in this 15% factor?
Yes, that's what's driving the increased generics is offsetting some of our increased in drug costs, but what we're battling are these high cost medications, and more and more prescriptions in that area. As our population ages, you'll have more folks on these types of medications to treat those disease states, and those the manufacturers are going up some 12 to 15% every year. So you're going to have a higher number of those scripts with a higher cost.
Along those lines, Mr. Fontaine, how did we do in the final quarter with, what's the name of our new?
RX benefits?
RX benefits. Did we achieve our $750,000 or whatever our annualized?
We are on track with our savings projections, and if you remember, the big portion of those savings comes in the additional rebates that we'll be receiving, and we're on track with all of that. At the same time, though, although we have those savings, remember we're dealing with something that's going up 15% a year as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Fontaine. A couple of my board members have questions. I do want to remind everyone that this is an information item. There's no motions on the floor, so I'll allow it, but let's just keep them very short and limited, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Fontaine, do you know about how much of the $46 million in claims could be attributed to those who might be Medicare eligible?
Not in this report, but we can certainly get those figures for you.
Thank you.
On the page before, on page 13, I'm reporting to you 85% generic utilization, just to show you the financial impact of that. 85% of your scripts are generics. On the next page, generics only represent 27% of your total prescription drug spend. So if we flip the coin on that, basically 15% of your prescriptions are driving 73% of your total prescription drug spend. On page 15, these are your top 10 medications by dollar amount. This is 1.7% of the total number of prescriptions and close to 18% of your total spend. These are the type of medications I was referring to earlier. I will tell you that 36% of your total claims right now are prescription drugs. So if there's any area that is growing rapidly, not only in your plan, but in any plan, it's going to be prescription drugs. The cost breakdown for your fixed cost as opposed to claims, you are running your plan for 5.9%. So basically 6 cents on a dollar is the hard cost of running your plan. What we pay to Blue Cross to administer the plan, and what we pay for reinsurance to protect the plan. And that is an outstanding percentage, because if you compare that to a fully insured plan, if you compare that to statistics stated for other large plans, you are running your plan very, very efficiently from a fixed cost standpoint. And finally, we all know that when we look at a large health plan, usually the rule of thumb is 15% of your membership is driving about 85% of the cost. I can tell you, if you look at the bullets here, 18.2% of your plan members are responsible for 81.1% of your total paid claims. Actually, 1.2% of your membership represents a third. 1/3 of your plan claims are coming from about 1.2% of your members. So high-cost claimants are what we really want to focus on in addition to prescription drugs.
Mr. Centani?
Mr. Fontaine, several months ago at an insurance committee meeting, I asked you for ideas on advertising educational campaigns along, and I'm going to focus at the other end of the spectrum where we have 75.3% of our members under $2,000 in claims, and I wanted to hear some ideas on how we could encourage or educate our members to look at our high deductible health care plan, because I'm pretty confident that they're probably spending more than $2,000 in premiums plus deductible over the course of a year, and would be much better served putting that savings in monthly premiums into a health savings account, since they are clearly not getting value for their insurance premium. Do we have anything on that?
We're looking, we've got information with regard to educating on a health savings account and how that kind of plan works, and to put together a campaign to actually show those savings in numbers. Also, further education with regard to choosing prescription drugs properly, that type of thing, as well as we're looking into some programs that are going to show some transparency as far as providers go. Because if you have 5 providers in network, nobody knows how much the actual cost of that procedure or service from that provider is, because we all pay either a co-pay or a deductible or a co-insurance. So these transparency tools will actually allow a member to see how much it costs, so they can choose one provider versus another, and that's especially helpful when you have a health savings account.
Might I request that we discuss this further at our next insurance meeting and have a little more hard something to discuss?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. That concludes our meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.